Hello and blessings to you. In this video, we're going to cover Chapter 11. But before we get started, I want to make a couple notes first. One, I don't think I've done a super great job telling you how I remember words along the way. So let's kind of back up just a little bit and at least look at this word, Sar, commander or chief. So maybe don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure the etymology of some words like Tsar or Tsar come from this word. I'm pretty sure that's the case, but even if it's not, this should be helpful in remembering commander or chief. Tsar, commander, chief. Okay? Moving forward, I'll make sure to do a better job kind of pointing some of these easier ones out just to make sure you notice them. Also, one other thing before we get started, let's talk about tenses a little bit. Now, we've covered this along the way, but I don't think I've ever broken it out for you like this. So let's remember in Hebrew, there are only two tenses, okay? The perfect and the imperfect. The perfect represents completed action, and the imperfect represents incompleted action. Alright? So in English, we have much more than that. We have past, present, and future. We have past perfect, present perfect, future perfect. I mean, there's all sorts of ways we can translate things. And so I wanted to take a moment to just kind of break out some of these possible translations into English. So if we have a perfect verb in Hebrew, we could actually go for any of these. Remember, it can be past, it can be present, and it can be future. Now, that past, present, and future, though, will have the sense of perfect or completed action. Okay? So in the past, that's like saying, I walked, I had walked, I did walk. All of those are past, and they are perfect because they're completed. Okay? And the present, you might also have completed action if you say something like, I have walked. So it's already been completed, you're done walking now, but it's still in the present. In the future, you might say something like, I will have walked. Now, it might be a little hard to conceptualize a situation where this would happen, and it's because we don't often have completed things in the future, but I guess it's something that you just really are counting on as if it's already done. So maybe you might say something like, by 6 o'clock, I will have run 4 miles, or something like that. Make sense? If you have any questions, you can always ask me about them. Now, today we're going to be talking about the imperfect, so let's kind of walk through some of these. So the imperfect, well, okay, sorry, before we jump to there, I will call your attention to our book wants us to generally translate perfect, completed action in the past. And you can see we have more options because it's easier to conceptualize perfect action in the past. Now the opposite is true for the perfect, or the imperfect, I mean. So in the imperfect, because this is incompleted action, you still can have that in the past, the present, and the future. But you can see we have more options in the future because it's easier for us to conceptualize that as future action. So in the textbook, we'll generally be translating things in the future when they are in the imperfect because they are incompleted. Okay? Still, let's go over this. In the past, we might have imperfect, incompleted action by saying, I was walking. So perhaps we're telling a story and maybe I was interrupted at this point. So I say, I was walking when the dog barked, or something like that. So in that story now, it's incompleted action in the past. In the present, you might say, I am walking, or even just, I walk. Now, in English, we can even get fancier with this and maybe have like continuous, repeated, habitual kind of action, like, I walk to the store every Monday. So it gets a little more complicated in English. I mean, if you can't tell, we have two forms here, and we have a lot in English. Okay? But so that's present. Now, future, again, is a lot easier for us to conceptualize. So here we have, I will walk. It's not completed yet, and it's in the future. I may walk. I would walk. So some of these are like, we might say the subjunctive tense in English. But so this is something that let's just keep in mind moving forward. So at a base level, if you just want to keep it simple, then just you can tend to translate perfect action in the past. So that's where we get like David guarded and things like that. An imperfect action you can tend to translate in the future. Okay? Well, let's jump into the lesson for today. So chapter 11, you can see we are talking about the imperfect tense. Okay, let's start out with our vocab. As, then. Hopefully you'll remember this from our story that we had. I forget if it was Tuesday or Thursday. I think it was Tuesday. But as, then. Im, if. Beit Lachem, Bethlehem. So here you guys are actually a little ahead now, because we've already talked about this several times. You can see this is the word pair form of bayit, house, covered up the tsari there. So instead of bayit, we have beit, and then lechem, bread, house of bread, Bethlehem. So you guys are already ahead, you already know that. Dam, damim, dam, dame. This is blood. Cherev, cherev means sword. And notice this is a feminine noun. Yisrael, Israel. If you sound it out, you can usually tell that this is going to be Israel, Yisrael. Kesef, kesef, silver, money. It's a masculine noun. Katav, well, rather, kaf, tav, bet, katav, means write. Katav is the 3ms perfect form, kind of the default form, so you'll probably catch me saying that a lot with when we come to these verbs. Mem, tzade, aleph, matzah, find. You might recognize this in conjunction with the bread in the wilderness, the matzah bread. Naomi, Naomi. So this is a kametz hatuf, and then this is a hatef kametz, which also has that O sound. So both of those are O class vowels, and so it's Naomi. And this one's shorter, so Naomi. Naomi. Olam, eternity, universe, forever even. It's a masculine noun. Eitz, eitzim, eitz, atzeh. This is tree or wood. It's a masculine noun. Pe, tav, chet, patach, open. And when you heard me verbalize that, some of you might have thought of our vowel, patach. That's exactly what this is, patach. This vowel has a very open sound. Your mouth is open and full when you say it. And it's kind of a short vowel. And so because of that, it's called patach. Open. Like it is open, or maybe it was open, something like that. Kof Resh Aleph, Korah, means to call or proclaim. This is the same root where we get the word Quran, because that book is a called out book. It is spoken out loud. Korah, call out, proclaim. Okay. Author gives us a couple notes here. Kharev is usually used as a collective noun, so just keep that in mind. Although, I mean, we find it singular a lot as well. Like someone might have a sword or something, but could also be collective, so we might say like swords in English. We don't really have a collective noun for sword in English. Excuse me. Okay. And then the last note here is Yisrael. Could be the name of either Jacob, the man, or the people, nation of Israel. Now some fun things, at least I consider this sort of thing fun, we have some idioms. So we have la olam. So this is our new word up here, olam, eternity, universe. You might also say, because of eternity, you might say ever. And remember, this is our inseparable preposition. So if we say to eternity, now not like Buzz Lightyear, that's to infinity. So to eternity might also have the sense of for ever. Okay? So le'olam, to eternity, forever. Right? Let me erase some of this so we have room if we need to write something else. Alright, so the next one, lo alam va'ed, forever and ever. Okay, so here, that same word right here, forever. Ad olam, this is until eternity. So again, we might just say forever. So a lot of different ways to say forever, I guess, is what you should get out of this. Let's move on to the imperfect tense now. So as you've already learned, we've talked about it before and at the beginning of this video even, there's two tenses in Hebrew. Okay, the perfect and the imperfect. They represent completed action and incompleted action. So here are some possible ways you can interpret the completed action of the perfect. So shamar might be he guarded, he did guard, he had guarded. But what if now this was in the imperfect, yishmor? So yishmor, it's not completed, incompleted action. We could say he will guard, future. He usually guards. It's a little less literal, but that's fine. This is like a continuous present. He might guard. May he guard. So these are more of like a subjunctive mood. He would guard. So all three of those actually are kind of subjunctive. So like we talked about, imperfect can be past, present, or future, just like the perfect. Typically, we might tend to do these future ones, especially in the context of this textbook as we're learning. Okay, so just quick note from the author, they're generally going to use a simple future, so he will guard. Okay, let's go on. So remember, pa'al, this is our normal verb pattern, okay? We also have been calling it the cal. So we have the cal perfect and the cal imperfect, or the pa'al perfect or pa'al imperfect. Okay, this is the only things you've learned so far have been pa'al, so there's nothing else to know about it. So perfect. Okay, So this is our paradigm, okay? I will need you to memorize this. Let's kind of break out some of these differences in how you might identify or diagnose these kinds of words and how they're parsed. So again, this is just kind of the typical pattern, all right? So the book uses the language of signal letters. You might also hear things like diagnostic letters or diagnostic features, okay? Typically, in the imperfect, your most helpful diagnostic letters, or signal letters rather, are at the beginning of the word. So here in the perfect, they were at the end of the word. So here we have shamarti, shamarta, shamart. Then our kind of normal form, shamar, shamra. Sorry, I was getting carried away with my circle there. Shamra, shamarnu, shamartem, shamarten, shamru, shamru. Okay, so in the perfect, those signal letters are typically at the end of our verb. In the imperfect, the signal letters are at the beginning. So here we have Eshmor, Tishmor, Tishmari, Yishmor, Tishmor, Nishmor, Tishmaru, sorry, Tishmaru, Tishmorna, so that's a different one, Tishmorna, Yishmaru, Tishmorna. Now, let's kind of, oh, I forget the highlighter doesn't work for some reason. I'm on my desktop computer. So let's point out a couple things here. Maybe I can change color. So notice some of these forms are the same, okay? So Tishmor could be second person, masculine, singular, so you will guard, but it can also be third person, feminine, singular, Tishmor, she will guard. So these forms are the same. So notice there's nothing about these, no vowel points, no signal letters that are different. These are the same form. So you might ask, how will we know which is which? Well, you'll typically always know from the context of the passage. So from what you're reading. So in exercises, it might be a little harder to identify, oh yeah, that's the 2ms rather than the 3ms. Or 3fs, sorry. But in the context of reading a story or reading a passage out of the Bible, you'll know because of the other nouns that are around this. So it's something that you'll just have to kind of go with in Hebrew, is you'll have to know from context. So context is key. I'm just going to write it because it is so important. Context. Same thing with Tishmorna. Tishmorna can either be a 2FP or a 3FP. Okay? Tishmorna. Now, the thing about this is you will very rarely encounter either of these forms, especially this one. So it's probably not going to be too big of a deal. Okay, now it's possible you might encounter the 3FP, I think even in the book of Ruth as we go through that. So still you need to memorize this whole paradigm, okay? And realize that these two are the same form and these two are the same form. But other than that, it should be pretty easy. Now, I want to spend some more time on this just to point out some other features here. Okay, so when you see an aleph at the beginning, like this, and actually I'm just going to circle it twice. So this aleph will always kind of point out to you that this is, well, if it's an imperfect verb, this will point out to you this is first person singular. Okay, so this aleph is a dead giveaway, first person singular. Maybe remember it's the first letter of the alphabet or something like that. Okay, so first person singular when you see this aleph. First person plural is also super easy to point out. Okay, if you remember in the first plural of the perfect, you have this noon here right before the shurik. Maybe kind of think of it in those terms, in the same way that that noon was your tip-off here, that this is a first plural, first common plural, perfect verb. Let that be your tip-off here. The noon is the first common plural, so nishmor. Okay? Maybe I need to erase some of this. We have a lot going on now. Okay. Similarly, if you have a yod, you can see that it's going to be a third person masculine. Okay, so both of these. So unfortunately up here it's super easy. You know this is singular. You know this is plural. Here, you'll have to look at the word for a little bit longer to see what's the difference between the singular and plural. But the yod does tip you off that this is a third masculine. Okay? So now we just have to see, is this a singular or is it a plural? So how will we do that? Well, if you look at these, there are some different vowel points here, but the next giveaway that you'll have is at the end of the word, this shurik. Okay, so it's up here too. This shurik lets you know that this is a plural form of the imperfect. Okay, maybe a good way to remember it is that there's already a shurik in that same form in the perfect. So you should already kind of think shurik as a plural kind of thing. Okay? So here in the imperfect, we have that shurik and the shurik. So we have yishmor is the singular. Yishmeru is the plural. Okay? Yod tips you off, it's a third masculine, and that shurik then will tip you off that it's the plural. Okay? Now, all of these other forms are going to have a tav here. So here we have tav, 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 tav. Okay? So we're going to need some other ways to start to kind of break out these words and what the difference is. Now some of these are the ones that we've already said, they're the same. Okay? So you won't have to memorize any differences between these two. You'll just have to remember this is by context. So by context, you'll know whether it's the 2ms or the 3fs. Same thing over here. These two are the same. So again, it's by context that you'll know if it's the 2fp or the 3fp. Alright? But you also have another signal right here that we haven't talked about yet. So this na at the end should signal for you that it is a feminine plural. So FP, feminine plural. So this na. So tishmorna. Tishmorna. So it's the same form, and that na signals it's a feminine plural. Maybe a way to remember that is this hey is typically a feminine ending anyways, right? Comments hey, feminine ending. So in a imperfect cal verb, this tishmorna is going to be imperfect feminine plural ending, and then it could either be second person or third person. And again, by context. Okay, So what does that leave us with? That leaves us with, well, here actually, let me circle this again. We already kind of talked about this ending. So the only one that we haven't talked about at all yet is this. So this heroic yod. Okay, now this is, you'll need to make sure that you don't confuse it with this heroic yod at the end of the first person in the perfect. This heroic yod, because it has this tav, lets you know that this is a second person feminine singular. Okay? Now, I probably didn't need to go through every single one of those, but I hope that was helpful. We're actually going to probably go through it again. Okay? So, just stick with me through this and we'll see how the book kind of breaks this out for us. So here, it wants, it reemphasizes, think of the future, or the imperfect as the future, and maybe this is a neat little trick. The future is ahead of you, and so the signal letter goes at the beginning. Kind of in that same vein, the past is behind you, so the signal letter goes at the end. Okay? So we have shamar, shamar, signal letter, signal letter. So when it's in front of you, nishmor, it's we will guard. When it's behind you, shamarnu, we guarded. So that's kind of a clever little way. I guess I didn't need to erase that. We're gonna keep moving down. So notice then also, like what we've said earlier, tishmor can be you will guard. And without looking up, do you remember, is this masculine or feminine? It's masculine. You will guard. Or it could also be she will guard. So 2ms or 3fs. Okay? Now, like we talked about, this shurik at the end lets you know that it is a plural. Okay? So tishmaru is a plural. Okay? We know that. Yishmaru is also a plural. Then we have to kind of, you just kind of have to ingrain this into your mind, and then this will kind of come naturally to you. But so we know that because this is a tav, that this is going to be a second person, because it doesn't have that na ending. So we have two options at that point. When it doesn't have the na ending, it could be a 2mp or it could be a 3mp. Okay, and then at that point the difference is a yod or a tav. So because this is a tav, this is 2mp. Because this is a yod, this is 3mp. Okay. Well, this isn't really what they were trying to show with this, so let's kind of do it their way. Tishmor, you will guard. Tishmaru, you plural will guard. Yishmor, he will guard. Yishmaru, they will guard. Okay, and then that na at the end it indicates it's feminine plural. Okay, could either be the you, the second person, or they, third person. Okay, feminine plural. Tishmorna, so same form, both things. Okay, and the author wants to point out for us, it's rarely used. Still, memorize it, but it's not going to be too tricky. You won't encounter it too often. Okay. Oh, and it looks like author also won't put it in exercises, so that's okay. Okay. Then this heroic yod is our feminine, second feminine singular. Okay, 2fs. in the imperfect. Okay, and that distinguishes it from the masculine tishmor. So we have tishmari, tishmor. Okay. So again, when you come to these letters, the first thing you recognize is that these are beginning with signal letters, and so we know it's the imperfect. Okay? And then at that point, you kind of have to notice some of these other differences. Memorize this chart, you'll be golden. Okay? Just like in the perfect, we'll use lo to make things negative or negated in the imperfect. So here we have David malak b'Mitzrayim. David ruled in Egypt. David lo malak b'Mitzrayim. David did not rule in Egypt. David yamlok b'Mitzrayim. David will rule in Egypt. David lo yimlok b'Mitzrayim. David will not rule in Egypt. Okay, so pretty much he's trying to point out the differences between these two sentences. Oh, I just made some smiley faces. I hope that brightens your day. Well, let's keep going. So, it does get a little more complicated, okay? Because there are three main vowel patterns. And notice these are main. So, things can even be different from this, okay? That's what that means. But so the main vowel patterns you'll see as hirik, shava, holam, okay? Like yishmor. Or hirik, shava, patak, yishlak. Hirik, shava, kametz, so very similar to the last one, yikra. And notice that the shavas, because they are closing out a syllable, are typically silent shavas. Yishmor, yishlak, yikra. Okay? Trying to think if there's anything I want to add to this. Because there are three different patterns here, you don't need to memorize these vowels as much as you need to memorize these signal letters. Okay? These are what's very important. Okay? The vowels are also important, don't get me wrong, but you don't need to memorize those specifically. You need to memorize these signal letters. Okay? So this aleph, tav, tav, yod, tav, noon, tav at the end, and then at the end the shurik. So those are the parts I would memorize, the tav and the shurik, the tav, the noon, kametz, hey, the yod, and well really the yod hirik, and then the shurik at the end, the tav hirik, and the noon, kametz, hey at the end. Okay, so what I've just listed are the things about this chart you want to memorize. Okay, so just be aware you might find different vowels in the middle. So not all of them are going to have this O sound, yishmor. Sometimes it has an A sound, yishlach. Okay, so let's kind of break out kind of the differences of what this will sound like. So we're using the verb shin mem resh, shin lamed chet, and kof resh aleph. Okay, so in our perfect, this would be like in our 3ms form, our kind of standard form, this would be shamar, shalach, kara. Okay, let's break this out in the imperfect. So just so you kind of know what's going on here, this is going to be first person, second person, second person, third person, and then once again, first person, second, third. Okay? And I guess just a little more detail. Masculine and then feminine. Sorry, this is almost unreadable in places. Okay, let's kind of break this out now. So we have Ani, Eshmor, Ani, Eshlach, Ani, Ekra. Ata, Tishmor, Ata, Tishlach, Ata, Tikra. At, Tishmor, At, Tishmari, At, Tishlachi, At, Tikrai. So you do pronounce this shava here. There's nothing that really breaks between it and this here gyod. Tikrai. Just have that hurried sound right before the long I sound. Okay, here we have hu yishmor, hu yishlach, hu yikra. He tishmor, he tishlach, he tikra. Anachnu nishmor, anachnu nishlach, anachnu nikra. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask. I didn't break out singular and plural, so there you go. This is terrible. Not going to help you much at all, so I don't know why I'm trying to make it look better. Just trying to help you follow along where we're at. So this is our first common plural that we just did. So now we're into our second masculine plural. Atem tishmeru, atem tishlachu, atem tikra'u. Aten tishmorna, aten tishlachna, aten tikrena. Tikrena. Okay? Haim yishmru, haim yishlachu, haim yikra'u. Heina tishmorna, heina tishlachna, heina tikrena. Okay? Hopefully that was helpful. Again, you don't need to memorize these charts, okay? Instead, memorize these signal letters, okay? So you see aleph, aleph, aleph. These tavs let you know it's imperfect. This hirik yod ending lets you know it's the 2fs. Okay? These are the things to memorize, are the signal letters. You don't have to memorize every single chart. Okay? Now, most regular, so that's the key word, so we also have irregular verbs, but most regular verbs will fit into one of these three patterns. Okay? He kind of breaks out the ones that you've already learned and which one they're similar to. This isn't all of the ones that you've learned, and if you want, you can look on your spelling chart at the end of the book if you want to kind of see exactly what these look like. But for now, we're going to just kind of move on past these. I will say, I kind of hinted at it a second ago, let's kind of talk about that a little bit more. There are irregular verbs. So we've already learned some in the perfect, I think. Like our third hey verbs is what we called those. That third hey sometimes drops out. Some of these letters might also drop out, but we're not going to talk about that in this chapter. We'll talk about it some in the next chapter and then in some of the following chapters. Okay? So really, last thing for today, let's talk a little bit more about the names of God. So again, you guys are sort of ahead on all of this. We already talked about the tetragrammaton and how it's made up of the letters Yod, He, Vav, He. Okay, and it should not be pronounced, and instead you say Adonai, and it comes from the word Adon, meaning Lord. I don't know if you guys are interested, where does that I come from? And by I mean AI, I sound. This kind of becomes a title, and when it's a title, you add a a sorry, a comments yod at the end, and it becomes a title. So we might say Malachi would be my, or like, O king, like you're addressing someone as king. You're saying someone is a king. And it could also, Malachi would be like my king, but Malachi would be addressing someone as a king, sorry. Same way, Adon is a lord. Adonai, you're addressing someone as a lord. And really, I'm not sure where this book covers this, so it may or may not talk about titles like that. So maybe just kind of file that away in the back of your mind. To make something a title in Hebrew, you can put the sound at the end of it. Okay, well, so let's kind of go on. You can also, I don't know how much we actually went into this part, but so the Bible also refers to God with El, singular, and Elohim, plural. So El could be little g, God, or it could be our God, which is capital G. Same thing, Elohim could be little g, gods, or it could also still be big G, God, singular. So when it's talking about foreign gods, it might say Elohim, but also the God of Israel, just singular, might still use Elohim. So this is kind of a funny thing, and you could, there's probably some different ideas for what that means theologically, and you can kind of take that wherever you want, I guess. But just as far as translation goes, just be aware you will come across Elohim, and it just means singular, God, the God of the Tetragrammaton, the one whose name we know. Okay? And one way that you'll know that this is our God, capital G, is because it will still take singular verbs, even though it's obviously a plural. So just something to keep your eye on as we move forward in translations. Ooh, this is fun. This is not in the Bible, but it's in other sacred Jewish texts. And we won't try to pronounce it. We would also just say Adonai when we see this. And the author points out that it's not found in the Bible. This is kind of a nickname for God. It's kind of a shortening of the divine name. Again, so you won't try to pronounce the divine name, and instead you'll say Adonai. But it's pretty interesting. Now, you might also, though, know that a lot of names in the Bible are built off of verbs and then ending in either El, meaning God, or this word, however we might pronounce that, which we won't. But so, for instance, we might have, this is going to be pretty terrible, because again, I'm on my desktop. And actually, sorry, I missed the ion. We might have a name, well, honestly, just off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure how to spell this, but I'm going for Samuel. So we have Shmuel, I think there's a kibbutz here, then an ion. It's something like this. This probably is incorrect, but I'm just trying to show you. We'll have names in the Bible, and actually, now that I'm looking at this, pretty confident this is going to be an aleph. Names in the Bible like Shmuel, Samuel, And this name has God's name in it. El. This means God. So out of this we'll get something like God hears. Because remember, the verb usually precedes the subject in Hebrew. So you could say, God hears. Now, you could also say some other things like, he hears God, or something along those lines. And that's who Samuel was. His story is he's the one who heard God talking to him. But also, he was named Samuel because God heard his mom, Hannah, whose name is another one we're about to talk about. So actually, that's kind of a good story to turn to. But so here we have Shema El is kind of what this is broken down. So Shema El, he hears God. God hears, implied him or someone. God hears. So just kind of pointing out that this is El. So same thing, my middle name is Michael. That Mike El, Muck El. So actually, those are all words you know. So it's the me from the who, remember? Who is he is she, me is who. So me, who, ka is like or as, El, God. Who is like God? That's what Michael means. So again, just pointing out we have that El. So a lot of names in the Bible are built off of the name of God. So who is like God? God hears, something like that. Now, we also have another kind of sequence of names in the Bible. We might have something, and again, I'm probably going to misspell this, but we might have something like, well, see, I was thinking Hannah, or even Hananiah, verbs like that. I'm not going to try to spell that one out, but I'm just pointing out that that end, that Yah, Hananiah, at the end, is coming from this. It's a nickname of the divine name, Hananiah. So a lot of names might end in L, a lot of names might end in Yah, and that's referencing God in that name. So hope you found that interesting. Alright, well, that's everything we have to talk about for today. Blessings to you.